Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Kataoka and you are watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says that the US has the makings of a deal with China ahead of a tariff truce deadline of August 12th. Meanwhile, global markets have jolted after dozens of nations were hit with steep tariff rises, as Canada says a deal could be weeks away. Russia says that 3 people have died in Ukrainian strikes on the country, and Ukraine says it has hit Russia's Ryazan oil refinery. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has again confirmed that sanctions will be placed on Russia if there is no peace deal with Ukraine by his deadline. It comes as US President Donald Trump says he's positioned 2 nuclear submarines in response to war threats from Russia's former president. Trump has said that Dmitry Medvedev have traded taunts in recent days. Protests have taken place in countries including the US, UK, and South Africa as fighting continues in the Gaza enclave. It comes as the United States promises a new Gaza food plan, while the Hamas-run Gaza Civil Defense say Israeli fire has killed another 22 Palestinians. Armenia and US will be conducting a joint military exercise from 12th to 20th August, according to Armenian Defense Ministry. Armenia, a treaty ally of Russia and historically a close partner, has seen tensions rise in recent years with Russia as it increasingly moves towards ties with the West. Indian officials have confirmed that India will continue to buy Russian oil regardless of the recent threats of penalties made by the US President Donald Trump. However, Indian Ministry of External Affairs nor White House has commented on this issue yet. Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo have agreed on the outline of an economic framework as part of a wider peace deal. Rwandan-backed M23 rebels and the DRC military had been involved in deadly clashes, displacing large numbers from the eastern DRC population. NASA's SpaceX Crew 11 has successfully docked at the International Space Station. After an express 15-hour flight, 4 members of the Crew 10 could return home from the ISS as early as Wednesday. A US media outlet has reported that Indian officials plan to continue purchasing oil from Russia, even after US President Donald Trump warned of possible penalties. According to the report, 2 senior Indian officials have confirmed that there has been no change in government policy. One of them stated that oil companies have not received any instructions to reduce imports from Russia. This comes after Donald Trump told reporters that he had heard India would stop buying Russian oil. Previously, he had also said that India could face penalties for buying Russian oil and weapons. However, he then contradicted himself and said that he did not care what India does in its relationship with Russia. According to reports, India is currently the largest buyer of Russian oil, which accounts for about 35% of its total oil imports. Although Indian state refineries reportedly reduced Russian oil purchases in July due to smaller price discounts, there has been no official change in their policy. Now we're joined by Martin Sai-Reitz. He's a foreign affairs expert. He joins us live from Germany. Thank you, Martin, for joining us today. Good to see you. Now, given that India has not been swayed by US threats, what does this tell us about the effectiveness of sanctions as a tool in modern geopolitical diplomacy?
I think the effects are not what Donald Trump expected from the tariffs. Putting in consideration that India has a long history in buying subsidized oil from Russia, and right now India is looking for its own interests, its energetic interests before its foreign relationships between its allies. And I think this is an example for that.
Yes, and Martin, now India has maintained its policy of purchasing oil. So What does this say about India's broader foreign policy priorities, especially regarding its energy security and relationship with the US?
I think India is showing the world its sovereignty and its power and its own interest in making this and in decision making. I think India is putting first the interest of the nation, which is actually having the best price for oil, which is very important for its industry. And even though they want to have a great relationship with the US, they're not putting the US first before its own interests. So I think this is an example for the world of putting your own interests first.
Yes, and Martin, now we know that India is the largest buyer of Russian oil. With this growing dependency, how do you think India will balance its energy needs with international pressures going forward?
I think right now the most important thing for India is maintaining its industry. India is a huge exporter of medicines around the world, and they want to put that first before having the best relationships with the US. We need to remember that India is one of the US allies in the southeast of Asia. Even though they want to maintain this strategic allyship, I don't think India is going to put it first before the need of this type of oil and the price of this oil, which is very cheap.
And Martin, last but not least, do you think we will see in the coming days, we will see any criticism from US or European nation towards this move by India?
Of course, India is going to get criticized by its Western allies, such as Europe and the US. However, I don't think this is going to damage or deteriorate its relationships. India is not actively involved in the Ukrainian-Russian war, and it's just logic that a country is going to purchase oil that has the best rate in the market. And due to this long history between the relationship between Russia and India in this aspect, I don't think this is going to change.
Thank you, Martin, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now we move on. U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, visited Hostages Square in Tel Aviv on Friday, where families of hostages held in Gaza have set up a symbolic barbed wire camp. Witkoff was reportedly greeted with applause by many of the demonstrators gathered in the square. This comes after Witkoff met Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for Gaza truce talks and to tackle the humanitarian crisis in the Gaza enclave, where reportedly a global hunger monitor has warned that famine is unfolding. Now we're joined by Matti Zweig. He's a geopolitical expert, joins us live from Israel. Thank you, Matti, for joining us today. Welcome to NewsX World. Now, how significant is the U.S. diplomatic role in pushing for Gaza truce?
Well, I think it's very significant because at this moment of the conflict, it's clear that among other things that they are part of this conflict, the humanitarian aid, it's a big part of it. It means who is delivering, how is delivering, and if it's really reaching the people that need this food. I'm not going to enter now in the discussion of the photos in the media, if they are real or not. We have discussed this in the past days. I think personally that most of them are not for real, but what is for real is there is a real conflict that must be stopped. And what is going to be stopped also is the possibility of Hamas, jihadist terrorist organization, to try to get in possession of these goods and stealing them and reselling them. So that's what this real conflict made Donald Trump did a U-turn in his relation also with Netanyahu and said that there is a real need for more aid, and he sent Witkoff also with the U.S. ambassador in Israel, Mike Huckabee. They have been yesterday in the southern part of Gaza, in Rafah, which is one of the main points of distributing this aid by the GHF, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. They have 3 in all of Gaza. They say it's not enough. I am sure that it's not enough. They have seen it for themselves. They have been 5 hours there, and they say that there's a real need to give more food and more possibilities for the people to get to the food without being harmed. And this question about being harmed of getting the food, this is a big question, because soldiers many times they felt threatened by all kind of people that make incidents, then part of them of Hamas, and many people was killed. This is really unfortunate, but this is part of the conflict. People is trying to get feed in the middle of this conflict. And at least the Israeli side with the GHF and other privates, the people are trying to give some real solution. Now, today Witkoff is also with the Israeli side. I mean, he went to visit the square of the hostages, where of course the families and the parents of these poor people in the tunnels of Hamas are trying to get some solution. And we have seen also in the conversations in Qatar that there was no solution. I mean, from one reason or another, Hamas don't want to free the hostages because they feel in this way they are going to completely lose maybe this war and get dismantled. So they are keeping them, and then this situation continues and is going on and on. And I suppose that now the mechanism to get him feed the population there are going to be better, but the roots of these problems, if they are not going to get a solution to finalize all the fightings and get back all the hostages or continue fighting, these are the 2 possibilities in this moment. It's very sad, and this is what is happening now.
And Matti, can you tell us that what challenges U.S. faces in navigating both Israeli as well as Palestinian interests?
Look, the interest is to give peace a chance, and to feed the people also for not mixing the non-involved people in the middle of the conflict. We have to understand that thousands of fighters or terrorists from Hamas have been killed, and they have recruited new, I would say, children, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, thousands of them that they have, unfortunately, nothing to lose in their files, and they are part of a new effort of continuing combating the IDF. And U.S., in his will of making peace, real peace, because it's good for Trump to make commerce wars, but not real wars with bullets and cannons and planes. So this is his approach, and it's very good, but it's not happening, not in this area of the world, also not between Russia and Ukraine, because the interests are much bigger than only trying to feed people. And this is unfortunately, and they should put amount of pressure, not only on Israel, that this is understandable, everybody is under pressure now in Europe too, but also to Hamas. And one other thing I would like to say, that all this effort from European countries to say, if they are going to have a finalization of these fightings and getting some kind of ceasefire and continuing a normal life, we will recognize the state of Palestine, which is to give a price to terrorism and to the forces that they are not in the interest of the Palestinians. The Palestinians, they can have genuine interests, but they cannot be interests of a jihadist group that only wants to destroy everything and overcome over even their own population.
Thank you, Matti, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now we move on. Russia's defense ministry says its forces have captured the village of Oleksandro Kalinove in eastern Ukraine, marking another advance in the Donetsk region. The village lies near key frontline areas where fighting has intensified in recent weeks. As Russian troops continue pushing through Ukrainian defensive lines, Kyiv has yet to comment on the reported loss. Meanwhile, in Russia, temporary flight restrictions at Samara's Kurumoch Airport has been lifted now after a brief 45-minute halt, according to Rosaviația, the country's civil aviation authority. The pause was implemented to ensure flight safety. No specific reason was given for the disruption. The airport is located in the Samara region, southeast of Moscow. Now we go back to our guest discussion with Mati Zweig. He's a geopolitical expert, joins us live from Israel. Thank you, Mati, for staying with us. Now, Russia's capture of Oleksandro Kalinove in eastern Ukraine. Can you tell us what is the strategic significance of this village in the broader context of this ongoing conflict?
Well, I think for the Russians, all villages that they can go forward and expand the territories they have conquered are very strategical, because they can get more influence in areas like close to the city of Sumy, or in Zaporizhia, or in Donetsk, and which is sometimes the Russians have said that they will accept that all the east of Ukraine will stay in their hands, because it was their so-called original goals. I mean, we don't know exactly, because the narratives have been changing over the years, and this has been already years. So every new village, it can make them be closer and closer to their goals, to have completely all the eastern Ukraine, and even the access to the Black Sea, close to Odessa and everything. This, all of them, they are very important for them. But look what happened now. Some hours ago, Ukraine targeted industrial and military sites in Russia and in Crimean Peninsula in a wave of overnight drone attacks also. And these strikes were reported in many places. I mean, it's not only the Russian side, it's also the Ukrainian side. They are counter-attacking in Ryazan, in Penza, in Samara, and Rostov-on-Don, in all these regions, and also in Crimea, in the region of Kerch, the city of Feodosia. I mean, all these can continue to harm all the southwestern parts of even refineries, very strategical places for Russia, and so the things are far for being finished. I mean, maybe the territory goals with all these villages that have been conquered Russia is getting closer to their goals before they maybe in the future will accept a ceasefire, but also all this harming of these strategical points also inside Russia is very interesting. For instance, the Ukrainian drones hit the Electropribor plant in Penza, in one city, which is a facility under international sanctions. And why is that? Because they have factories, they produce navigation systems for the defense industry. So things are far from being finished, as I said. And I think, as we also talked these last days in different interviews, that there are so much interest for both sides, especially for Russia, for not to get to a ceasefires, and they feel they have the optimal conditions to start talking about that.
Thank you very much, Mati Zweig, for joining us and sharing your insight all the way from Israel. Now we move on. Global markets slumped Friday as weak U.S. jobs data, fresh Trump tariffs, and key personnel changes rattled investors. The MSCI Global Index fell 1.32%, its steepest drop since mid-April, after the U.S. reported just 73,000 new jobs in July, far below forecasts, with June's figure sharply revised lower. President Donald Trump ordered the firing of Bureau of Labor Statistics Chief Erica McEntarfer, alleging without evidence the data was rigged. Markets were further shaken by this news that Fed Governor Adriana Kugler will resign August 8th, prompting concerns over central bank independence. Rate cut bets for September jumped to 87.5%. On Wall Street, the DOW fell 542 points. The S&P 500 slid 1.6% and the Nasdaq dropped 2.24%. Amazon sank over 8% on disappointing cloud growth. Europe stocks X 600 lost 1.89%. The dollar index fell 1.37% as the euro surged and the yen strengthened. U.S. 10-year yields dropped to 4.22%, while 2-year yields fell to 3.69% on easing bets. Oil prices slid nearly 3% on weak demand signals and OPEC supply concerns, with U.S. crude at $67.33 a barrel. Gold rallied 2.14% to $360.45 US as investors sought safety. Now we're joined for this discussion by Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's a fellow at Hudson Institute, joining us live from Tokyo. Thank you, Doctor, for joining us today. Good to see you. Now, with fresh tariffs imposed by President Trump and the firing of the Bureau of Labor Statistics chiefs, how are these moves affecting both investor confidence as well as broader economic outlook?
This number is improving, but less than the expected. That is the situation. So that's why the number itself was not wrong, but more better one could happen. And President Trump's complaint about official who take charge of this number is indeed this has happened before he sworn in as a president. So during the election time, she published many numbers, and that time Biden was the president, and so that's why indeed President Trump does not trust her. So that's why this complaint is culminated. Now President Trump fired her, so that has happened. But indeed, this small crashes between two has happened. Indeed, this has continued for a long time, indeed. So this time, this is affecting the economy, that's true, but at the same time, firing itself is not so important. The number is important. This is official number, so not a number based on the neutral something, but anyway, this is official number. So official number, President Trump thinks this is more supportive for him. And as an official number of the other country, that could happen, but at the same time, anyway, number is there, and official who take charge is originally Biden administration supporters, many people believe. So that's why this has happened. But reality is, yes, at least some certain numbers, economy is improving, that's true.
Thank you very much, Dr. Satoru Nagao, for joining us as always and sharing your insights. Now we move on to our next news. United Nations Under-Secretary General George Moreira da Silva has called for unprecedented global solidarity, warning that the world faces its most interconnected crisis in decades. Speaking to China Media Group, the UNOPS chief said 25% of the global population now lives in conflict zones, the highest level since World War II, and that climate disasters are increasingly striking the same regions affected by war. Da Silva stressed the growing overlap between climate vulnerability and violent conflict, with floods, droughts, cyclones, and hurricanes hitting countries already torn by violence. He urged an ambitious approach that combines prevention, humanitarian aid, and sustainable development, warning that the crises are compounded with new emergencies piling atop existing ones. The only way to tackle these challenges is through international solidarity, bringing peace, stability, and development, Da Silva said. Now for this discussion, we are joined by Ajit Kumar. He's a managing director at Kushi Gram Foundation. He joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you, Ajit, for joining us today. Welcome to NewsX World. Now, given India's growing global influence, what role do you see India playing in promoting such solidarity and contributing to global peace and towards sustainability?
India has good relations with almost all the countries in the world, and India is accessible. India can access any country, and any country can access India and the Indian systems to take benefit of all the developmental requirements and needs that started with many things before Corona also, but Corona was one of the biggest leap that India took. And then after that, a lot of support, technology, R&D is also going on in India and other countries. So India is the leader of the global south as well, apart from being connected to the global north also, well connected. So India definitely has a strong position in terms of relationships, in terms of commitments, in terms of what they can they can tell the world what to do and what not to do and how to do, bringing in, developing coalitions in the development sector, be it the development agencies, the banks, and the social organizations, international social organizations, United Nations bodies, all of them together. So India has already started the process. We are already working on it, trying to, like the net zero target we have put for 2070, we are way ahead of the target. I think we'll be able to fulfill it around 2050, 55 only, or maybe before that. So the renewable energy goals, similarly the other climate goals, and then trying to strike peace with different countries, build relations. That is important. Solidarity is very important. The term that the UN official said is a very important term. We have to be in solidarity because the kind of climate change effects we are seeing everywhere across the world, be it the developed part or the developing or the underdeveloped part, everywhere the problems are there. So we can't shirk from the problems.
And Ajit, I would like to highlight that India also faces a lot of challenges such as flooding that we see recently surging across India, and also flooding every summer almost in India. So how is India addressing these challenges within India? Is this due to climate change and regional instability, particularly in areas like Kashmir as well as Northeast?
That's true. See, we need to strike a balance between development and nature. So the development, actually true development is a balance only. But what we call development is just economic, industrial growth, lot of factories coming in and all. That is not development. Development is a balance between nature and what we need. So that is the balance that we have to strike. There is enormous tourism going into the hills, as you said, Kashmir and Himachal and Uttarakhand and northeastern states also now. But Sikkim has faced the problems, cloud bursts, and a lot of disasters taking place. Not very big ones, but one or two big ones also we had. So we need to strike a balance between all these. We need to have more areas for tourism, more areas where people can go, more areas where we can develop or create manufacturing hubs. But the manufacturing hubs should also be totally green now. So we have to start with the green. It's not like that we start a factory and after 10 years say that no, we are now going to turn green. We have to start with being green, having a less footprint, carbon footprint, water footprint, and all the natural resources or footprint, and positive sustainable development footprint across anything we do. So that is a key thing, and we have to understand that our food and water, all these things are in the villages. So urbanization is fine, but we have to balance that urbanization also. We have to see that some people are able to stay in the rural areas and earn their good livelihoods also, and those livelihoods are green. And in urban areas also, we have to see that we are closest to the nature. So whatever we do, it has to be close to the nature. So maybe planting more trees, seeing that our rivers or water bodies are not encroached, and seeing that the